Good day everyone of the Dark Assembly. For today I was hoping of proposing a new build that would allow me to start doing some Disgaea videos for my channel. With that said, why don't we just skip the remaining formalities and just get right into the voting. Okay, that sounded like an overwhelming amount of nays from everyone. Senator Mingles, what say you? By the way, did you also get those sardines I sent to your daughter as a gift? I'll take that as a yes. And this is why I love the government here. Welcome, my friends.
To the world of Disgaea. Disgaea. I still remember being recommended this series by a friend of mine back in middle school, and I cannot thank him enough for introducing me to this fantastic tactical role-playing game series. And I wasn't even into TRPGs at the time. Back then, I was definitely more into plain old RPGs like Pokemon, as my tiny little brain couldn't even imagine putting a T in front of those letters. Disgaea, however, was different. Not only was it intuitive, it also gave me reason to want to learn some of the more complex mechanics thanks to a fantastic cast of characters, great self-aware humor, and surprisingly deep storylines.
And since it is the month of Halloween, I can't think of a better way of welcoming in the holiday than with a video game series that involves armies of the dead, supernatural beings, and talking penguins.
Now, while I could do a favorite characters list, that's something I kind of want to save for a more special occasion, and there are also a lot of other things I want to do this month. A favorite characters list would be at least a two-parter. So with that, let's instead just keep it simple by ranking the games themselves from my least favorite to most favorite game. Now do take note, I love all of the Disgaea games as they at least provide something to enjoy. That said, there are entries in this series that I would play over others. Also take note, I'm only talking about the 6 main games. I might bring up their remakes, but I will still consider them in the same ranking. I'm not going to include stuff like Makai Kingdom, despite taking place in the same universe. Same with the 2 pretty PSP games. I haven't even played any of those yet.
With that said, here are my rankings for the 6 Disgaea games currently available.
Again, even though this is at the bottom of my list, I wouldn't call it a bad game, but it's unfortunately not very memorable, especially when compared against every other game in the series. Alright, for some positives though, this game does have a fantastic supporting cast. I love Brasbel, I find Almost to be very entertaining, bonus points for being dubbed by Jayan Bosch. And while I can understand some people not liking her, I adore Sapphire. The difficulty and learning curve is fairly well balanced, and it also introduced some important new gameplay mechanics like evilities, magi changes, and combo attacks. Unfortunately, everything else is kind of... Okay, first things first, the main character, Mao.
Oh dear god. Look, I'm not a huge fan of Vic Mignogna, but I think he can be a good actor. Just not in roles like this, where his voice can get more than a little bit...
Shut up! Your kitchen will be no problem to find! Heroes!
Annoying.
Mao does kind of develop over the course of the story, despite the main game story being the shortest in the series so far, with a grand total of 8 chapters. Yeah, the game tries to pad it out with some more stages per chapter, and there are at least some lengthy post-game stuff, especially if you bought the beta remake Absence of Detention, but it was hard to ignore how little the main story actually progresses, especially in the first 3 or 4 chapters, with one chapter being about cooking eggs. Because, yeah, screw battles to decide the fate of the universe, let's go cook some eggs, shall we? Yeah. Also, while this game did introduce new concepts like magic change and combo attacks, they would only really become viable gameplay mechanics in future titles. Again, I don't want to make it sound like I outright hate this game, because I don't. There's plenty of funny and entertaining moments like any good Disgaea game, but it's hard to ignore this game's flaws. If it accomplished anything, at least it gave me a hankering for eggs and hot sauce. So, that's something.
Well, he ate the legendary dragon egg, sunny side up, so will Lord Mao's heart open up?
Are you two really that stupid?
The second most recent game in the series is actually a direct sequel to the first game, which unfortunately means it suffers from a slight case of sequelitis, including retreading several plot points from the first game. They encounter an angel in the second chapter, they have a boss fight with her and a dragon she summons, they befriend said angel, and eventually go to Celestia with her.
Look, there's inductive reasoning, there's deja vu, there's language processing, there's deja vu.
Now granted, Cecilia is still a great new character with emotional backstory, and while she's no flaw, she is her own unique character. And even though they went through full-on story arcs already, the original Disgaea trio are still a ton of fun, and not even getting some decent character development here. Gameplay wise, this is one of the more refined titles, again second after 5. That said, the piggyback or monster mounting feature was not a good replacement for magic change in my opinion. Yeah, magic change can be situational, but that was the point. It was meant to be a fun last minute resort in battle. Mounting I found could become a game breaker, especially if you put a mage on top of a strong monster type. Plus, again, piggybacking. Nowhere near as aesthetically pleasing as turning your ally into a weapon a la Soul Eater. Still a really darn solid game, but like the film world, you should never expect the sequel to beat the original.
Why were you shipped in a package? Good question. So I wouldn't get lost on the way. Aren't I a genius?
That's brilliant. Getting a taste for it, Doctor? No, not at all, not me.
That said, oh boy, I'm gonna piss off some diehard fans, aren't I? Look, as far as story is concerned, this easily would have cracked the top 3, if not steal the #1 spot. A pseudo coming-of-age story featuring a selfish brat who learns humility while siding with Flash Gordon XP into a final battle between heaven and hell. What else could you ask for? These characters remain absolutely timeless. Laharo set the standard of how you do a villain protagonist who eventually becomes a great anti-hero. Enda was a funny wisecracker with a good heart, and Flan was just hilarious and so good-natured that you can't help but love her. And again, while I do love the current HD sprites, I still find the old PS2 graphics kind of charming in their own way. But let's face it, like any good RPG, it still had some growing pains to go through in regards to its gameplay.
Now granted, going back and playing it, I'd say it has aged a lot more gracefully than other RPGs I could name. Stupid OP psychic types.
But yeah, that doesn't change that the interface is still fairly clunky, a lot of the great innovations of future titles weren't available yet, and there's still some required grinding. Still, I can never take away what the original game did for me as a gamer. I'll hold all of the memories I have of playing this old classic close to me, good and bad.
My castle fell again. Fix it, okay?
Now, for these top 3, I had a really hard time deciding on their order. I mean, depending on the day of the week, I could actually see myself putting any one of them at the top of this list. Still, this is just the order I decided to go with based on my feelings towards them, as well as balancing out their strengths and weaknesses.
Yep, the latest game in the series managed to break into my top 3. Now again, I still think Hour of Darkness has the superior story and characters, but if we're talking pure gameplay mechanics, this could arguably be the best in the series. It improved the interface and introduced a bunch of new gameplay features. The most notable of these were of course the Revenge mode, and by extension the Overlord skills. Essentially these were brief super modes that added a great new layer of strategy to an already well-refined system. The best ones of course belong to the main characters, not just because they were strong, but also because all of their skills evolved over the course of the game as the characters themselves evolved into better people. I just love it when gameplay mechanics correlate with character development like this. Speaking of characters, let's move on to them. First, I again love the supporting cast here. Red Magnus and Usalia are major standouts. That said, I'm not a huge fan of the main protagonist. Without going too much into spoiler territory, Killia is your typical lone wolf RPG protagonist who has a dark past and all that jazz.
That's just what people like us do. suffer quietly, shouldering the knowledge no one else can bear.
Alright, I won't outright say I dislike Killia as he is a legit badass. I just kind of wish he had a little bit more actual character to him. Preferably a character that doesn't borrow from other protagonists. Yeah, I won't say exactly what he borrows from Rosalind because again, it's major spoiler territory. But let me just say, I think Rosalind pulled off that twist a lot better. Still, a slightly boring protagonist isn't a big deal breaker for me. Though, I'm also not a fan of how weak the post-game is here. Spoilers, don't get your hopes up about meeting any of the protagonists from previous games like you could with any of the PS3 games. Unless you pony up the cash for a season pass.
Ah, DLC. They've done such great things for the Japanese gaming industry. Isn't that right, Capcom?
And yes, I know about the ending's implications in regards to the timeline, but when has continuity ever been that big of an issue in Disgaea of all things? All that said, this was still a great epic story spanning multiple worlds with fantastic gameplay. Looking forward to the future of this series, with hopefully a little less going down the whole EA path if at all possible, please.
Don't make me laugh! Red Magnus challenges you lost jabronis to a fight! Just bring it!
For those wondering how I think Killia's character could have been handled better, look no further than the main character here. Adele is definitely one of my all-time favorite protagonists in Disgaea. He's noble and determined, and yet not above making a wisecrack here and there. A man among men, my friends. I kid though, while he does kinda fill out the Shonen Jump protagonist checklist, his energy and enthusiasm is infectious, helped by the fact that he never acts like a self-entitled asshole nor a complete moron. Ahem. He's also got a really great tragic backstory involving his family. Seriously, go play the game to see it for yourself. And don't forget the tissues. Still, it takes two to tango, and Rosalind is the perfect dance partner. Much like Laharl before her, she goes through some great, believable character development, while maintaining a cool aura, even if she does become a bit of a tsundere by the end. But yeah, she and Adele are my favorite couple in Disgaea, helped by them having near-perfect chemistry.
It says something when I get a smile every time I see them in this and future titles.
And of course, as always, the supporting cast is great. This being the game that introduces Axel, my favorite recurring side character in this game series. Yukimaru is adorable, and Tink is...
Would you mind giving a handsome frog a lesson? Perhaps back there where no one can see us?
I like most of the supporting cast here. Gameplay-wise, while more refined and less grindy, it isn't that much different than 1, but it did introduce some new gameplay features, which never appeared again in the series.
Well, that was pointless.
Still, this was the second and last Disgaea game to come out on the PS2, and boy did they go out with a bang.
Don't worry, I always keep my promises, no matter what.
I don't need you to act all cool. I can take care of myself.
Sundre, 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 sundre.
Alas, there can only be one. While I'll fully admit that other titles have stronger individual elements, this game just does everything so great that I think I need to put it at the top. To me, this is a near perfect game. Great visuals that still hold up to this day, well-balanced gameplay with some of the best geo-puzzles in my opinion, lots of fan service for long-time players, and while the story could be all over the place at times, it's still well told in my opinion, even sneaking in some pretty good social commentary. On top of that, they also dedicate plenty of time for great character moments. Yes, I make it no secret that I prioritize character arcs in my stories, and every one of the main cast gets their moment to shine, and I love all of them.
I think the thing that makes this cast my favorite overall is just how diversified they are.
They all bring their own unique quirks to the table. The main protagonist, Valvatoris, is especially a standout. While his chewing the scenery 6 ways to Sunday is endlessly entertaining, what I really like about him is his sincerity. He always stays true to his code of ethics, will almost always be honest when he's not hiding his romantic feelings, and most importantly of all, he never breaks promises. Seeing the latter play out throughout this game really drives home how great of a character he is. And of course, seeing him work off of everyone is great too. From his loyal yet malicious retainer Fenric, the delusional yet strong-spirited Fuka, the cute as all hell wannabe final boss Desco, the bright yet dedicated half-pint Emizel, and the greedy yet well-spoken Volcanus leads to some great moments. I cannot describe how much I love seeing these characters work off each other. This is probably the Disgaea game I've sunk the most hours into, and is one that I keep going back to. Seriously, if you've never played a Disgaea game before, track down the Beta remake of this game, A Promise Revisited. It adds to what's already a fantastic game with all of the DLC, plus a new and really touching little time travel story after you beat the main game. You'll have a ton of fun playing it, and might even learn a little bit about sardines. A little bit too much, but hey, fish is good for you, right?
Reading rule number 1. You shall always include the word dude in every line you say.
1 hour later.
Reading rule number 1. You shall always include the word dude in every line you say.
2 hours later.
Pretty rule number 1. You shall always include the word dude in every line you say.
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
And that's my list. Again, regardless of my own personal rankings, I think you can't go wrong with any of these games.
This is such a great series that I never want to see end. If you want a good strategy game with some puzzle solving elements, or want a great epic story with some good comedy, then these games have your name on them.
Next time though, we're going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to do a little commentary on something that everyone has been bothering me about ever since I posted my Princess Precure review. I'll do it, but with my own little twist. To see what it is, be sure to check back. Until then though, farewell for now, my friends.